Hello, beautiful people. My name is Emma.
And I'm MC.
And we are your hosts of the G-Forces podcast. So, this weekend was Spa, the Belgian Grand Prix. One of the best ones of the year. We say that like a lot of weekends, but I think we just really like the old races, some of them. And then some of the new ones are pretty cool to watch.
I didn't think it was one of the best of the year.
This year.
Yeah,
I think it's one of the best tracks, but like this race weekend was dull.
Yeah, typically it's exciting. Weather is very unpredictable. I think a lot of people were shocked at how nice the weather was for the first 2 days, which, surprised us all. And then there was an insane amount of rain this morning before the race, which delayed it for, like an hour and a half, 40 minutes.
Yeah, it definitely threw a wrench in our daily
morning plan. But I don't know. There was no real excitement or battles in my mind that really stood out. I think there was impressive feats, with Lewis and what he was able to do, and we'll get to it, but nothing really exciting happened. It was just
an okay race. Like normally I feel like, last year we had
chaos.
We had George Russell win the actual race last year, and then he got disqualified after the race happened, like after the podium, and so then Lewis Hamilton got the trophy. He got first place, and this was the second race in a row that Lewis had then won, technically, because he won the British Grand Prix the week before, the race before. And so it was like such chaos, but so good. And Oscar was like chasing Lewis down in the end, and it was so good. And then this year, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. It was just weird. There's something's been off in F1 recently for me, energy-wise. Like, it's not...
I am curious, and I don't know if it's because of the way the points are, like, McLaren's kind of clinched the title, and now it's between its two drivers. But I'm curious to fans that watched when the regulation changes happened last time, if this is just kind of we're seeing the ending of, like, there's not as much drive to improve the car. I mean, a lot of teams did bring upgrades this weekend, but from what I heard, I think it was one or two teams, like, last upgrades for the season. And so for me, I'm curious if we're just kind of seeing the end of this regulation. The teams I don't want to say don't care, but there's just not this motivation. Like, a lot of people
I feel like that's
focused,
Aston Martin to a T.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of people are focused, I feel like, on 2026. But yeah, I feel like there's been a missing, like, oomph, like, and again, I don't know if this is because we are McLaren fans, so it's exciting to see them win, but is this how Red Bull fans felt?
It's exciting to see them win, but also not at the same time. I'm like, ooh, I'm so happy that my favorite drivers are winning, but I'm also just like, okay. I saw something really funny about somebody. I don't remember who, it might have been Matt and Tommy. I don't remember. But somebody was like, okay, somebody has, like, the cameraman or one of the producers of F1 TV has to have, like, a thing for moms or something. Because, like, during, like, quali, we see, or even the sprint race or something, I can't remember what it was, we see, like, Lando and, like, Oscar cross the finish line, and they go and pan to, like, one of their moms to, like, Lando's mom or something. But there was, like, a legitimate battle going on the track. I'm sorry, I don't want to see your mom. I want to see the battle.
Well, the other problem is I think you're right. I think it was Matt and Tommy were talking about how I don't need to see Lando slowing down during his, like he just finished his lap. I want to see the people, and this is a problem that we've all talked about throughout this season, is I don't know what's going on with the camera direction, because I don't remember it being this terrible. But you need to focus on the battles. You need to show us more of the middle pack. Like, it's a little frustrating when, I'm sorry, I don't need to see Lando weaving back and forth. Let me see someone that's in their fast lap. Let me see someone we don't normally typically see. Give more people airtime.
Like, I feel like I only ever notice someone's fast lap when they put the timer down at the bottom for them, but we don't actually get to see them driving.
Yeah.
Which is really annoying. But we could rant about this for days.
Yeah, I think I was a little underwhelmed. I think waking up this morning and seeing the weather, I believe F3 got fully canceled. Seeing the weather, I was a little excited in the sense of this is going to add, a twist, even though everyone was expecting it. It was just like another factor the teams had to deal with. And it was delayed. And while it did begin as quite a wet race, the track dried incredibly fast.
Yeah.
And I think so many people, and I do wonder if it's because we've had a slew of DNFs recently, if people are driving safer because they just need the points, their money cap,
well, and
things
honestly,
like
with
that.
the reputation, like the most more recent history of this track, unfortunately, we have had several deaths over the last decade there.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if when it is a slightly dangerous conditions out there, I wonder if people are I'm not taking a chance.
Yeah.
I honestly, well, we'll talk about it further when we get into the race recap. I was genuinely surprised about Oscar's confidence in that first lap passing Lando.
Yeah.
Especially where he passed him, because that is the most dangerous spot on the track.
Yeah.
So, alrighty. We've got a lot to talk about, I guess. So we're going to get into it.
So the official race name for this weekend was the Formula One Moet and Chandon, which I think is how you pronounce it, Belgian Grand Prix 2025. So you're seeing that LVMH branding coming through with a few new names, because before, I don't know what it was last year, but it was definitely not named after the champagne.
No.
The first F1 Grand Prix was held in the debut year in 1950 at this racetrack, so it has quite a lengthy history. I think we went over the dangers of this track in the past. It's quite a scary one if you kind of look into the history. So the lap record is still in place. It was close this year, but it wasn't actually broken. So the lap record was placed last year in 2024 by Checo Perez. He did it in his Red Bull, and that was 1 minute 44.701 seconds for a lap. The fastest lap this year was done by Kimi, and he did it in 1 minute 44.861 seconds. So really close. The circuit length is 7.004 kilometers or 4.352 miles. They're going to do 44 laps around this circuit, which comes to a race distance of 308.052 kilometers or 191.414 miles, kind of where we always fall. There are 19 turns at this track, but there are 2 DRS zones. So DRS detection zone 1 is between turns 1 and 2, with activation starting a little after turn 4. And then DRS detection zone 2 is between turns 17 and 18, and activation is between turns 18 and 1. So one thing I just wanted to note that I don't typically talk about during the weekend is the tires. So the tires were not in a consecutive order this weekend. So typically what you'll have is Pirelli will decide to choose between C1 and C2, C3 for the hard mediums and softs. And then they'll do it in order. So you'll always see 1, 2, 3 or 4, 5, 6 or 3, 4, 5, whatever they decide.
Yeah.
This year, this weekend, they decided to not do a consecutive lineup of tires, which you really don't see, but they were hoping that the reason behind this was the hopes that it would make a more competitive, guaranteed 2-stop race.
Yeah, and the entire time that we've been doing this, at least the podcast, we have never seen a race like that, to the point where, when MC got the post ready to go, I didn't post it because I was like, is this correct?
Yeah, and I was like, I should have mentioned when I sent to you that everything was good, that the tires were funky this weekend. But yeah, so when you're watching, it's just a little bit different and not really what we see.
Yeah.
So that is the track info.
Just one thing to note, it is interesting that Pirelli did that. And you said because they wanted a 2-stop, and in fact, the majority of people only had a 1-stop, which is interesting. Where last year it was mind blowing that George Russell only did 1-stop. Most people only did 1-stop.
Yeah, I think more people. I'm thinking about the people in the back that ended up doing.
No, there's
2
a couple
stops.
of people that did 2 stops, but the majority only did 1-stop.
Yeah.
Pirelli's tires have been wacky this year.
I think, not to make it political, but the planet's heating up, and I'm sure they're not accounting for the fact that that's happening so fast. I mean, it is hot. It is hot in Europe.
It's hot
It's
here.
been hot here. I think, they're dealing with just the fact that it is significantly warmer than what was expected.
I mean, just in the continental U.S. in the South, we have been under a heat advisory for like the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And we've
It
still
just
got
keeps getting
yeah, it
extended.
keeps getting extended. And then from what it looks like, people said in Belgium, because Tomorrowland is going on right now, this is the hottest summer that they've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just massive heat waves going on everywhere. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure the Pirelli probably didn't account for that.
Yeah, I just also, I wonder if it's just the fact that the tracks are getting so much hotter. But it also could be the setup of the car. Who knows? I'm sure someone will correct me and be like, it's this regulation or it's difficult on the tires or some shit like that. But I'm sure it's a factor of things, environmental and industrial, that are causing these issues. We may never know.
All right, let's get into practice.
So this was a sprint weekend, so we only had one practice session, and there really isn't a ton to say. So weather for this session was partly cloudy, but overall was pretty sunny. Like I said, the first 2 days, it was what?
When you said partly cloudy, the first thing that popped into my head was partly cloudy with a chance of meatballs.
Oh my god. Carlos ended up reporting that he was having issues with his acceleration, and I feel like, James Vowles gave him, 10 or 15 races to really find his footing, and I think he's just struggling a little bit more with this car than originally thought that was going to happen. I think...
But, it's not just him. There was, Alex did great this weekend in some aspects, but, the cars had a lot of problems over the last few races.
And a lot of time when you hear radio from Alex, he doesn't seem particularly thrilled by what's going on in the car.
No.
So Lance Stroll also reported a problem and headed back into the pits, and that was 2 people already back in the pits only 4 minutes into the session. Other than that, the only thing to really note was that Red Bull brought a ton of upgrades this weekend, along with a bunch of other teams, and something we didn't even mention because so much else is going on, and I feel like it happened so quickly, was this was the first weekend without Christian Horner as team principal. This is the first weekend with Laurent Mekies, and while it might be a wild conspiracy theory, I have an incredible thought about Yuki Tsunoda's results after qualifying, which we'll get to when we get to qualifying.
Yeah, I'll also mention a little rumor that's going around.
But yeah, I thought that it was a pretty basic, it's a sprint weekend. Everyone's going to play it safe, as we've normally seen, because people don't want to destroy their cars because they have a race they have a qualifying session in 2 hours.
Yeah.
So that was really it for practice. Just a whole bunch of people trying to figure out, I'm sure with the rookies trying to figure out the track. From what I remember them saying, I think this is Liam Lawson's last track that he really didn't know, or one of the rookies' last tracks. And then everywhere else on the grid, on the schedule for the rest of the season, they have experience with.
Yeah, I do feel like F2 or F3 has raced here at Spa.
They were here this weekend.
I know, one of the other, unfortunately...
Which is why I think it might be Liam, because he didn't do F2. He was in Super Formula.
He did do F2, and then he went to Super Formula. It probably was Kimi. No, I don't know. One of them.
Anyways.
But the reason why I know that F3 has raced here was because of, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, one of the other people who passed away at this racetrack, Delano Van Toff, I think that's how you say his full name. He was one of the people that passed away during an F3 race 2 years ago. And so that is also why, and it was in the same place that Antoine Hubert passed away. So a lot of people kind of take this weekend a little hard, I feel like, the drivers, understandably.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're going to go into sprint quali. We're actually combining both sprint quali and the sprint into one segment.
So, for sprint quali, SQ1, the session... Jesus Christ, I'm tripping over my words. Okay, so for SQ1, session starts and Max is still in the garage with his team working around the rear of the car, and a lot of people were like, what the hell is going on? I feel like there was just a few people that just kept on having car issues that needed to be pulled into the garage. I mean, we saw it happen a few times.
Yeah.
In the other quali session, unfortunately, Kimi ended up having a full spin in the gravel, and he was able to get out of it okay. But
this was not Kimi's weekend.
You can just, there's an incredible amount of rumors going on with what's going on with Mercedes. I think a lot of people online were like, we have to remember he's 18 years old. Like, while he has been probably in a more adult position than a lot of 18-year-olds, he's still a kid, and this is an insane amount of pressure. And who knows how the contract negotiations are going. And so to have this spin out, you could just hear that, like the stress in his voice.
I think I saw a clip from this weekend when George was doing some media that apparently Toto's confirmed that it's going to be George and Kimi for next year. Or like he's not confirmed, but he's like, that's my plan.
That's what I had heard too, that like Toto had kind of gone along the lines of being like, sometimes you just vacation in the same place as another person. Like,
well, and George was asked about it by a reporter, and George, they were like, yeah, supposedly Toto has said this, and George is like, yeah, I know, I told you this a couple of weeks ago, but you didn't believe me.
Yeah.
And the reporter was like, well, we didn't have this information then, and he was like, yeah, but I said it.
Yeah. George was actually behind Kimi, and his lap ended up getting affected by all of the dust that was kicked up when this happened. Lewis also had a massive spin-off right at the end of the session, and this kind of messed up a lot of people's final laps. So, like, a lot of people were in the middle of theirs, or, like, we're just trying to get a time on the board, and this kind of screwed it up.
This was a bad weekend for Lewis.
Jolyon Palmer thinks that it was just a really, really bad rear lockup, and after the session, a miserable Lewis Hamilton, like Eeyore level rain cloud, if not worse, basically was like,
he was just miserable when he was speaking to reporters, and more negative than he even normally is.
Yeah. So knocked out of the session was Alex Albon, Nico Hülkenberg, Lewis Hamilton, Franco Colapinto, and Kimi Antonelli.
Something that's interesting is that Nico Hülkenberg was asked, I don't remember by who, it might have been Jolyon actually, about his quali pace and everything, because normally Nico's really good at quali, but then his actual races, it kind of just depends on the car. And he said that like this year, like his 1 lap pace, like he just cannot get the feel for the car in a 1 lap pace, but when it comes to actual race pace, like he can really feel it well. So it's interesting to see the difference from what his career has normally been.
Going into SQ2, Oscar's first time was deleted for track limits at turn 4, and so this was something that track limits kind of, I feel like every year Spa and track limits always kind of come up hand in hand, and so this was not the only exception to someone being faced with the curse of track limits. George was sort of dying, and Carlos was able to put in a great lap, as well as Haas and Bartoletto having amazing fast laps. Lando ended up being 11th, but then was able to improve to the fastest time. And Oscar was 10th, but he was able to get into the final session. So he was at risk, but still able to move on. Knocked out was Liam Lawson, Yuki Tsunoda, George Russell, Fernando Alonso, and Lance Stroll. And as per usual, F1 TV kind of panned to Toto, and Toto just looked miserable. But I think both cars kind of struggled. Like, they just did not do that well at this track. I don't know if it's probably the stress of everything that's going on with the rumors and the press and, you know, just figuring out what's going on at the back end. But it just wasn't the best weekend for Mercedes. Moving on to SQ3, Lando was not able to beat Oscar, and Max ended up eventually splitting up the pair. There were a lot of happy surprises in this session, with both Haas and Carlos able to compete during SQ3, which, while it is only a sprint quali, I feel like those are a group of people who have like kind of struggled to get into Q3. Along with, I mean, Isaac's been in a Q3 setting, but we also saw Pierre, which I swear to God, I don't know how he was able to get this far.
I feel like Pierre is always randomly in Q3, but then his car tanks.
Yeah. So the top 10 was Oscar, Max, Lando, Charles, Esteban, Carlos, Ollie, Pierre, Isaac, and Gabby Bortoletto. So quite a lot of names not in that session, which I feel like is always exciting. It's always a nice like toss up.
Yeah.
So moving on to the actual sprint itself the following day. So Franco was supposed to start P19, but he ended up starting from the pit lane since his team had switched his rear wing under parc fermé conditions. And then the other Alpine, his teammate Pierre, was also having issues with his water system, and then it would announce that he would not be taking part in the start. I assumed, like, oh, they're pulling him out, but just you wait. Oscar ended up having a good start, but Max was able to overtake, and he was able to take first from Oscar pretty early on in the lap, or the second lap, which I feel like was almost something similar. It was foreshadowing to a move that we would see at the beginning of the race. Charles was able to take third from Lando, but Lando was able to eventually take it back from Charles. And around that same time, it was announced that Pierre would actually be participating in the sprint, but he would be 2 laps behind. So everyone just kind of assumed that this was going to be a testing session for them. Again, Flavio, what's the plan, man? Like, what are we doing? What's going on? You know, Travis Kelce, let us know. Curious. Are you still even involved?
Yeah, I do wonder, all these celebrity investors, what happened to them?
Yeah, where'd they go? I don't really see them posting a lot. I feel like
they did.
I feel like you see more. I feel like you see more support for like the soccer clubs than you do for Alpine right now. Lando was moving up, getting closer and closer to Oscar and Max, but no one was able to move past, even though Oscar attempted a few times onto Max. A lot of people online were saying that this is kind of the same issue we've always had with sprints, where people understand the pressure of, like, you have the sprint race, and then 2 hours later, like 2.5 hours later, you have quali for the big race. And like we've seen in so many races this season, almost I feel like every single one, your grid place really matters. And so people don't really want to take risks. So I feel like everyone just kind of settled, which is fine. Like, there was a few movements. We saw a little bit, but kind of like the race, it wasn't incredibly exciting. So the top 8, which score points in the sprint, ended up being Max in first, Oscar in second, Lando in third, Charles in fourth, Esteban in fifth, Carlos in sixth, Ollie in seventh, and Isaac in eighth. So all those people scoring points, good to see. I mean, double points for Haas.
Yeah.
Love to see it. And I feel like it's just good for Carlos to gain points for Williams, because I feel like
he needs the confidence boost, but I also just think that he needs, like, the positivity up from it. Like, knowing that he can do something.
Yeah. So that is the sprint of the weekend. I don't think I love sprints.
At least the current version of sprints. There's got to be something else. Like,
a
reverse grid, maybe. Or, like, your qualifying for the race is your finishing order from the sprint.
Yeah.
Like, that would be interesting, because then people would take it very seriously.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Figure out a different formula. Make it more exciting.
Also, stop having sprint races in, like, Qatar. What are we doing?
Yeah. That's a weekend that, like, no one needs that.
No, nobody needs that.
So,
anyways, let's get into quali.
Q1, the session, as per usual, started with drama. Fernando almost hit Ollie as they're lining up. I feel like maybe it should be kind of like a zipper system, because
the current system's not working. Trying to get out of the pit lane.
I know
there was an accident in the pit lane this weekend.
So Fernando freaks out about Ollie, and then Hülkenberg tries to zipper in, and Lance Stroll goes over his front wing. So, you know, Lance, let's figure out how to merge. Well, same with Hulk. You both need to figure out how to merge. Communication, eye contact. The track evolution was crazy.
It was actually insane.
And basically no one was safe. Track limits was a minor topic this weekend, like I stated earlier, and caused a huge upset during this session, which just continues to rain on Lewis Hamilton's parade.
Yeah.
Everyone, the fans, everyone on the pit lane believed that Hamilton was safe, but as everyone was coming back to the pit to prep for the next session, it was announced that his time was deleted for track limits. Rewatching it unfortunately was very obviously track limits.
Yeah.
But it just sucked because he had been in the knockout zone and then he put in this great lap and came up to like 6th or something.
Yeah, and then he's driving back and he gets told that his time got deleted. And I think he ended up cursing into the radio.
Yeah,
It wasn't
just
great.
not great. So the other thing, and these are my notes, the Astons, I don't even know what to say anymore. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's like they just have money to burn and they're just throwing away this season, or if the car is just that difficult, like it's just that miserable, but I don't know. It was not a good weekend.
No.
So, knocked out of that first quali session was Lewis Hamilton, Franco Colapinto, Kimi Antonelli, Fernando Alonso, and Lance Stroll.
We have something to say about Franco.
Give Jack Doohan
Another chance.
Because I'm at the point where I'm like, what is the plan? Where did Jack go? We haven't seen Jack.
Not one word about Jack.
Is he
Has
safe?
Even been mentioned.
Is he okay? I just feel like you gave Jack 5 races. You said you were going to give Franco 5 races. And now what the hell is the plan?
Yeah.
What is going on?
And Franco...
No offense to Franco, like, you know, he's putting in all of his effort, and it's very obvious that he is.
And it's obvious that the car is just shit, but
but
they're performing the same.
Yeah.
So why not also let Jack in again?
So, there's that. Moving on to quali 2, again, these quali sessions, the whole weekend was quite safe. The McLarens ended up dominating the beginning of the session, and Max was just really unable to catch them. Other than that, it was kind of typical people that we've seen knocked out in this session. So knocked out was Esteban Ocon, Ollie Behrman, Pierre Gasly, Nico Hulkenberg, and Carlos Sainz. Moving on to Q3, both McLarens were expected to come out on top, with it looking as if Oscar was going to end up taking pole. But Lando was able to put in a faster time, and Max was just completely unable to touch the two, get anywhere close to their times. So the top 10 for that session ended up being P1 Lando, P2 Oscar, 3 Charles, 4 Max, 5 Alex, 6 George, 7 Yuki, 8 Isaac, 9 Liam, and 10 Gabby. So I do feel like there were a lot of typical names, but then also names we don't typically see. I feel like Gabby Bortoletto,
he's been doing really good
showing
qualifying.
How good and how he was F2 champion.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to just mention was that this was Yuki's best grid result as an F1 driver. Or not as an F1 driver, as a Red Bull driver. Jesus Christ.
So let's take a second to talk about Red Bull and Yuki in this whole situation. I heard a little rumor. Again, this is all rumor. This is all alleged. It has not been confirmed from what I know. That apparently, so it's very normal that when a team brings upgrades, they won't put the upgrades on both cars naturally because you got to have a control unit. This is how experiments work, people. And
Science.
so, yeah. So they put the upgrades on one car. So they would typically bring 2 sets of upgrades and they would put they put the upgrade on Max's car and not on Yuki's car. Well, rumor has it they would bring a second set of upgrades, obviously not put it on Yuki's car, but they just were not ever adding the upgrades to Yuki's car. Because normally, okay, if it works that weekend, all right, the next weekend, let's put it on the other car as well. They were just not putting it on the other car at all.
Or if it works throughout the weekend, they would add it to the second car throughout the weekend to see if
No, they were just keeping it as a spare for Max's car and then not upgrading Yuki's car whatsoever. So of course Yuki's gonna be performing like shit if you're basically upgrading the other car, and it's almost like a weird downgrade for the other car then.
Obviously, this is all
Alleged.
speculation and alleged at this point. It hasn't been confirmed.
But the rumor was that after the sprint race and before quali, because you can still technically, you can work on your car after the sprint race and before quali in the setup. Apparently, Laurent Mekies was like, set up Yuki's car the same as Max's car. Like, why is the setup not the same?
There was also a lot of chatter at the beginning of the weekend regarding, Yuki and his performance in Red Bull, in Christian Horner's Red Bull, and how he was going to perform with Laurent Mekies, because him and Laurent have already had a really good working relationship. I mean, they've been together for the last year and a half.
Longer than that. I mean, Laurent was the team principal for how long?
I thought he got promoted to the team principal last year, but he was an engineer
Maybe.
Yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my
but
head.
I think that
they've been on the same team for all of Yuki's career.
Well, and I just think that it goes to show that, obviously, again, this is speculation as well, but, and pointing out the obvious, because I feel like everyone kind of feels this way. It's like, how bad was it working under Christian Horner? Like, how difficult was it? And how difficult was it across the board? Like, not only for people, engineers, but for, like, the names, the drivers,
Yeah. I mean, now I want to know, like, how bad was it for, like, Checo? Like, was Checo not getting upgrades? Like, did Danny leave because he stopped getting upgrades?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm sure we'll never know, but...
It was nice hearing. So Jonathan Wheatley used to be a Red Bull employee, and he's now the team principal of Sauber. And a lot of former Red Bull employees are obviously his friends, and a lot of specifically like the engineers. And he made a comment this weekend that he was really happy to see a lot of his friends finally make it to the team principal position, like Laurent Mekies, like Alain Permain. And it's just really nice to see a little bit of a change.
Yeah, I think it
was a lighter weekend, it felt like.
It felt like it was a lighter weekend. I feel like, and I said this to Emma, I wondered too if, and I think I've said this before in the past, all of these things are run by board of directors, all these teams, and I wonder if, the engineering mindset has really outpaced. I mean, it's such a data-driven sport, and I wonder if it's really just outpaced, the rich guy who kind of liked racing, who's kind of a party boy kind of mindset, and I think we have moved away from that, and there was a lot of talk and emphasis on the fact that you're getting a lot more engineers as team principals. I mean, they've been the backbones of these teams making really intense decisions on the drop of a dime, at all these race weekends for years and, not really getting the recognition. I mean, now with Drive to Survive and how big F1 has become as a brand, I think you are, people have a few older people in the sport have rolled their eyes at the fact that mechanics now get asked for autographs, but I think these are people that are physically breaking their bodies, not actually, but like they're putting their bodies through everything to change the tires and to get the freaking car ready for the race, and they deserve the recognition. And I think to see, not just a giant pot of money being the face of a brand anymore. And obviously, yes, I know Christian Horner had larger credentials than just his money, but at the end of the day, he came from the sport 20 years ago when it was different. The spectators were different. You didn't have as many female fans, and it was also the early 2000s. Things were wild. I mean, we talk about it all the time. Like, I mean, think about the Prince and Me Girls Gone Wild storyline. That's just absolutely insane. Like, even rewatching things from 2011, you're like, the way they speak to women. And I think, obviously everything is speculation, but I think the way you treat your employees really goes to show, how people are performing. And I think it's interesting that there's already a little bit of improvement.
Yeah.
So.
Well, now we are going to get into the actual race. Like we said before, the race was delayed by about 90 minutes. So I had to do my whole morning routine before the actual race this time.
The Belgian fans brought the party, though.
We thought Dutch fans and Japanese fans were crazy? No,
you guys, I don't know how you kept so positive. Maybe it was
they ran out of beer, apparently.
Yeah, one of the grandstands was like, we ran out of beer, so not really sure if that was just that particular grandstand or if that was the whole venue, but I I feel like Spa, and I said this to Emma, especially today with all the rain, it just makes me want fall so bad. I mean, here in Tennessee, it's like 94 degrees today, so I really just want like a crisp fall afternoon. And so watching Spa,
I could cry for some fall weather.
I know it's not that cold in Europe right now, but it's just like
it was cold enough that when they were waiting there, like because of the delayed start, people were holding cups of coffee and the steam was coming off.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I would die for that right now.
Yeah. But anyways.
So yeah, they all went out with the safety car to do the first lap, the formation lap, to see if it was dry enough. And they all went out with inters on, which was a choice. You really can tell that nobody, under any circumstance, will want to put the wets on unless they absolutely have to. And they did about, what was it? It was like 1 or 2 laps behind the safety car, and then they went back in, and went back into the pits, and their cars just sat there in the pit lane. And that's when they put the tents on top, and then all the drivers get out.
It gives the most like regatta weather energy.
Yeah, it really does feel like
everyone's
like a
just
race,
sitting
like
around. They had like the Red Bull drivers were making tea. Someone was handing out cookies. All the drivers are in the garage just chatting.
Yo, someone was handing out cookies, and from the view on the TV,
it just looked like potatoes.
It looked like they were handing out just like warm potatoes, and I was like, I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
I won't complain about a warm potato, but interesting choice.
On the go jacket potatoes.
Full blown carbo load to the extreme. Anyways, 90 minutes later, the race finally gets going. It was really funny watching the, before the race actually got going, watching the F1 TV commentators, and, if the camera was pointed in one direction, it was a blue sky. If it was pointed in the other direction, it was,
doom.
Yeah, it was not great. But it all worked out in the end. So finally, after a 90-minute delay, the race got started, and it was behind the safety car, the actual race start. And they went for another couple of laps, and finally the green flag went up, and the green lights went off. The lights went off at about at the end of lap 4, beginning of lap 5. The safety car had finally got in. And right basically off the start, Oscar passed Lando. And it was, okay, so Eau Rouge is the hill that goes up. Radion is the top of the hill. And then there's that straight right there. I don't know what the straight is called, but it was on that straight after Radion that Oscar actually made the pass on Lando, which is the scariest spot of the track.
Yeah.
Because you're also doing that uphill, and it's a turn a bit, at full pace. Like, you're not slowing down at all.
I feel like you could actually visibly see the confidence difference in Oscar making the move, and then just Lando and driving the car in those wet conditions. And it, no offense to Lando, it just seemed that Oscar was just so much smoother, was able to keep a straighter line.
I think that's something that we've seen with Oscar throughout this season compared to Lando. Like,
he takes
a
little bit bigger risks.
Yeah, he's definitely a little bit bolder with the moves. And you can tell that he's doing that because he's a little bit more comfortable with the car than Lando is. So that's just something interesting. George, unfortunately, passed Alex in lap 6, which felt like a betrayal. If my bestie passed me after me busting my ass to get there, I'd be like, what are you doing?
Yeah, but, I'm sure Alex understands, because I'm pretty sure he signed an extension or has a longer contract, and he's like, George,
meanwhile, George has no idea what his future holds. So I get that. So Lando apparently on the radio was talking to Will Joseph, his race engineer, and it was like, why don't I have any
battery
or
pack?
Which was referring to the battery. And he's asking this kind of after Oscar had just passed him, and after all this was going on. And it's reported that basically he had drained his battery in the safety car restart. And then Oscar used his battery when he was trying to pass Lando. And so that's why Lando didn't really have a ton to kind of go after Oscar with. So, Max was lap 11. We actually see Max just like completely up Charles's ass. This was the beginning of this. And then it just continued for the rest of the race,
And nothing changed.
which was weird.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just the Red Bull didn't have the oomph that needed to pass. I know that he kept getting close and then losing a bit of time and kept getting close. So I'm not really sure because again, they didn't really focus on Charles and Max even though they were battling a bit. So not sure what happened there.
Yeah, definitely strained. Lap 12, we see the first person go in for some slick tires, and that first person was Lewis. So usually I feel like it's who's going to be the sacrificial lamb and go in. And Lewis made the call. I think Lewis was just I'm having a shit weekend already. Let me go.
It can't get any worse. Crashing might not be any worse. Might be better.
Yeah, it actually might be.
And I also feel like Lewis is a confident driver in the weather. Like, he can do it.
Yeah, I mean, when you're raised in England.
Yeah, he knows Spa. He's done it quite a few times.
He's won it quite a few times.
So I think there was that confidence of, like, I have the experience. Put me on slicks.
Yeah.
It was also drying so fast.
I don't think I've ever seen a track dry that fast.
Yeah, because there was like one or two spots that seemed to be a little bit slower, but I feel like the whole thing dried pretty evenly.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, there were many people that followed him. So Pierre, Hulkenberg, Fernando, they all went in for slicks. And then on the next lap, basically everybody else went in for tires. Most people got mediums. The one person who got hards was Lando, which was an interesting move. So basically, Lando went in to get his slicks after Oscar did. And at that point,
he's pulling into the pit, his race engineer is like he's like about to pull into the pit lane. His race engineer is like, if we do hards, we can probably do the whole race. We don't have to pit again.
Because it was predicted that the mediums would not last the rest of the race at the time that people were pitting. And so really at that point, the difference between Lando and Oscar's race is really going to depend on strategy unless they want to battle it out on track. And so it kind of really just depends on the strategist making the right calls or not.
I also think we're going to see, and I know every driver is on their own race run, but I think we're going to see interesting communication in the final group of races between Oscar and Lando because they are competing, and you could just see that there was no similarity really in the course that they were running,
which is I think
the way it should go.
Yeah. So Oscar had gotten mediums like everybody else, and then Lando was given hards in hopes that he would be fine to make it to the end of the race, but nobody else would.
And when they come out, they're about 9 seconds, a little under 9 seconds.
Yeah,
apart.
there was it was a bit of a slow pit stop for Lando because his front right tire they didn't put it on straight on.
It fumbled a little.
Yeah, so it was a little bit slower than expected. But
for those that watch the F1 movie, no offense to this McLaren mechanic, it did look like it was a man, so it wasn't a woman who fumbled. Shout out the F1 movie.
Now Charles and Max had actually dropped down to 10 plus seconds behind Lando and Oscar, which was interesting for them to have dropped so far behind. This was before they had actually gone in, Charles and Max, but the McLarens were just walking on Charles and Max.
Yeah, the car is just in a league of its own, and it really showed this weekend. And, no offense to Charles and the way he can defend, but it was actually surprising how well he was able to defend Max.
I also feel like Max wasn't going hard though.
Yeah, and maybe he had complained about issues with the car, grip, so who knows if his confidence was shot a little bit.
Yeah. Lap 14 and 13 or lap 14 there was actually 3 wide. It was more 4 or 5 wide, really.
It was terrifying.
It was very scary. So it was Esteban, Alex, Max, George, and then Charles kind of out in front. So it was really 4 wide, and then Charles out in front of them, but directly in front of them. Mm-hmm. And it was just what are you doing? Why are all there's? It's okay, when we were younger and we would go, our family would take a trip to the Jersey Shore, and all 20 of us would be in the water, and it's why are you drifting so close to me? We got a whole ocean.
Yeah.
You got a whole track. Why y'all next to each other?
I thought you were going to talk about when we were walking home from the beach and everyone would walk in like a straight line, taking up the whole block. And it's like, why are we
That is true. Why did we always do that?
Because we're insane.
Anyways. So this is when we also find out, it's about lap 1918, that the mediums actually might make it to the end.
Yeah, there was discussion of, it's a 44 lap race, so we're getting to halfway point, and it really became a lot of race engineers asking their drivers how it was feeling. Carlos was struggling a bit more, so Carlos was someone that ended up going back in to put on, I think he ended up putting on hards, but then Oscar was like, they're degrading a little bit, but I guess I can make it work. Because at that point, all of a sudden, it was the realization of Lando's not going to pit at all. It's not even on the table. And so it's like either you stay out or you pit and then you come out between Charles and Max, which is just terrible. I wouldn't want to come out then.
No, not between them two.
I think it was fun experience. Oscar make the tires work. And Oscar made the tires work.
Yes, he in fact did. So then, lap 20, we see actually the Saubers swap places. So Gabby was like, "You need Hulkenberg to pass, or else he needs to pass the person in front of him, or you need to let me go."
Yeah.
And they eventually let Gabby go. Lap 20, we also see Lando get the fastest lap. And this is also like Oscar's starting to realize he's going to have to make these last for the rest of the race. And it's like, okay, and my teammate who's right behind me just got fastest lap. Okay.
Well,
and by right behind him, I mean like 9 seconds.
Yeah, I think the thing that impressed us and the commentators was the consistency that Oscar was able to perform, because there was a few moments where you started to see Lando make little mistakes.
And something that Oscar has struggled with in past years is tire performance, where, like, I don't know what he did, but this year his tire performance has been, like, top notch.
Yeah.
So we hear Max now complaining about some issues with the car. What were the issues? Do we know?
I can't remember. I feel like he was having accelerator issues. I feel like he's always having it. Like, he's never happy.
Yeah.
He doesn't like the feel of the car. I don't know.
Anyways. Isaac Hadjar had actually, so at this point, Isaac was like quite far in the back. Meanwhile, he didn't start that far back. And it was because when he had pitted, he actually pitted a lap behind everybody else. And that just kind of screwed him.
Yeah.
He just got totally screwed. And he was one of the few people that ended up pitting twice. And so then he was just dead last for a good chunk of time. Lap 23, we see Carlos say that the mediums are starting to degrade fast.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because 3 to 5 laps beforehand, we found out that Oscar was going to try to make him last for the rest of the race. So it was like, okay, so then what's happening?
Yeah. Well, and I think it goes to show you how different the cars are.
100%.
That Williams ended up making a decision, but Oscar was able to stay out the whole time.
Yeah. And now we're getting a huge DRS train for like the middle to bottom pack of the pack.
Yeah.
So we have a DRS train where Pierre is leading, Yuki right behind him, then Ollie, then Fernando, and then Kimi, and then anyone who's behind Kimi just kind of was stuck there. And there was no way for anyone to get out of this DRS train. It felt like it was never ending.
And that was it. That's what it felt like.
Lap 32, at this point, only 15 drivers had only stopped once. And I believe that's the number it stayed at for the rest of the race, unless there might have been like 1 or 2 other people who had gone in. But like 12 to 15 drivers only ended up doing a 1 stop. Lap 32, we also see now it's 8.5 second gap between Oscar and Lando. So for like the last 8, 9 laps, 12 laps, it's really, can Lando catch up to Oscar? And Oscar was still planning to keep the mediums on until the end. And it was really interesting because, like, I turned to Mary Catherine when we had about 10 laps left, and I was like, either he has to go a second faster on every single lap now, or, like, Oscar's tires just have to shit the bed.
And did they get close? They did. Like, Lando in those last 10 seconds walked quite a bit.
Closer.
They got closer. The problem was, too, and this is what I just said a few minutes ago, was Lando unfortunately kept making, like, little teeny tiny mistakes, slipping, but all of their tires were degrading, and I think sometimes those little mistakes that Lando makes ends up benefiting. This is an obvious statement, but it really benefited Oscar. It gave him a little
Yeah.
bit of wiggle room, which I'm sure helped the length of his tires that were already falling apart.
Yeah. Yeah. Hulkenberg now pulls in for another set of mediums. So yeah, I think he was like the last person to go in for tires. And then lap 37, Lando is 6.5 seconds behind Oscar. Remember it's a 44 lap race, so that means that there's 8 laps left of the race, and he's 6.5 seconds behind Oscar. And then finally, by lap 43, he's about 3 to 4 seconds behind Oscar. I think it was about 3. And then on turn 1, the first turn of the lap, 43, Lando ends up having a really bad rotation of the car and goes super wide, and it's a very slow rotation. And he ends up dropping back a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was like, okay, well, now this determined the end of the race.
Yeah.
And so then it ended up being the final order of the race. Let me pull it up because I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what it was. Okay. The final race results were P1 Oscar, P2 Lando, P3 Charles, P4 Max, P5 George, P6 Alex, P7 Lewis.
Shout out to Lewis, by the way, who started in the very back of the group
Lewis
and fought
really
for his
walked.
life. Also, shout out to Alex Albon for defending against Lewis for like half of the race.
Good majority of the race.
Yeah.
P8 Liam, P9 Gabby, P10 Pierre, P11 Ollie, P12 Nico, P13 Yuki, P14 Lance, P15 Esteban, P16 Kimi, P17 Fernando, P18 Carlos, P19 Franco, and P20 Isaac. Carlos kind of just got fucked, basically.
Yeah, I think Isaac, Carlos, like a few of the guys at the end of the pack, just the tire strategy really didn't go in their favor. But it was quite a clean race,
Yeah,
I think
it feels like the first time in a long time that there weren't any DNFs or
Yeah.
like an accident of some sort.
Yeah. So,
yeah. All right, we're going to get into our final thoughts now. Okay. Do you have any thoughts?
I feel like I've kind of expressed them all throughout the podcast.
Yeah, I feel so too.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that, okay, so obviously Yuki didn't end up in the top 10. I think that the strategy of this race weekend wasn't the best. It's also the first race weekend with Laurent Mekies as team principal, so things are going to feel a little different. But I think Yuki's qualifying shows that he can do well in this car. I think that he just needs the encouragement and all the upgrades as well. And I think that we're going to see a different Yuki in the coming weeks.
I feel like I just hope we see a different Red Bull in the coming weeks. I hope that there's a lot more positivity. I mean, I don't know if this was a product of Laurent Mekies or just the fact that it wasn't Red Bull, but I always felt like V-Carb has always brought a little bit of like a goofy energy.
Yeah.
And I really just hope that Red Bull can really reignite and bring positivity. And because it's just not been fun to watch.
They've been
miserable. Kind of been a team that's been a black mark on the grid, which sounds terrible and so aggressive, but it has,
I would agree.
There's been rumors and speculation and general uncomfortableness, and fans aren't happy, and the drivers aren't happy, and, hopefully there was a cause, and they figured out the root of the cause, but if not, I hope that, they're all given grace to figure it out as a team, and...
Yeah.
I hope that, it was strange. There was a lot of conversation around this being the new era of Red Bull. And it was just weird to realize that this really is. It's a new team. It's, probably not the way some people internally would have wanted to see it happen, but hopefully this is, a good thing and they're on the up and up.
Yeah, and again, I mean, online when the news had come out about Christian Horner, we could tell online that nobody was upset about it. People were quite happy. And I think that energy honestly carried into the weekend. I didn't see anybody who had complaints or issues or whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't watch any of the press coverage this weekend. We've just, honestly, it's summer. We've been really, really busy. But I don't feel like there was anything
I feel like people didn't even get
overtly-
asked weird questions about it. Like,
yeah, and I wonder if Red Bull like requested that. If that
like
was
I feel like even though we didn't watch the press conferences, I would have seen clips from the press conference if people had asked about it.
yeah, just people just seemed excited for, you know, Laurent and Alan to be where they are.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm excited. I'm excited to see a new face as a team principal with VCarb. Just excited to see where it goes. Hopefully it's only positive from here on out.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Some of the other teams that are struggling right now, I'm really hoping they're gonna get it together because I hate watching like Williams struggle. And like, yeah, Alex did well, but like
Carlos, I just want him to walk away with lots of points.
yeah, and, I don't
And a
think he has.
podium. Or a win.
That would be nice. One of them to get a podium
Yeah.
at least for coming sometime soon.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't really think there's much else to go over.
No, we gotta...
Yes, there is. MC is convinced that she can tell the future.
Every driver I feel like I've done recently, historical, that's still alive, obviously
our
not
Get
the
Ready-
ones who have passed.
In our Get Ready episode.
Everyone in our Get Ready episode has been at the race. And so
This
you know,
weekend,
this
waving the
weekend-
checker flag was Jackie Hicks.
And I was just like, I don't feel like we ever saw him the last 2 years that we watched.
Maybe, I'm not sure.
Gerhard Berger was there too. Like, I don't know, man.
Someone's going to come back from the dead.
Yeah. I'm like, watch out, Brazil. Senna might no. That'd be
I don't need that.
no.
No, I don't need that energy.
I would feel like I'd be committed at that point. Emma would be like, MC,
We got a problem here.
you have a screw loose.
All right. Well, I think it's Hungary next weekend.
Mm-hmm,
And then it might be next weekend or 2 weekends. I don't think it's next weekend. It might be 2 weekends from now. We'll have to check. And
if it is next weekend, we are away.
likely not going to be doing a Get Ready episode for that then.
Yeah,
because
it will
We've got a
be-
crazy week coming up.
But we'll let you update. We'll let you'll see. You'll see.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I know you're not.
But then when there was also like the second summer break afterwards
Mm-hmm.
before Zandvoort, or it might be Imola. I can't remember which one's first. I think it's usually Zandvoort. And that's usually about a 3-ish week break, sometimes 4.
Yeah.
So we'll see y'all then too.
Yeah. We're gonna go watch the Indy race.
Yes, we're gonna go watch some IndyCar right now,
Yeah.
and you should too.
Yeah. They're at Laguna Seca. It's really cool. That's really all I have to say. I feel like their cars are popping off this weekend. The liveries are growing on me. All you IndyCar fans, even though it stresses me out because they change every freaking weekend, it feels like some of them are growing on me because I feel like they have more fun.
And let's see if Penske actually keeps it together.
Yeah.
Joseph Newgarden had a good qualifying.
Yeah, I just want to see McLaughlin finish a race.
I'd like to see any of the Penske drivers finish a race right now.
True. Yeah.
So, all right. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow us on all of the things. Do all the things.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.